Hey, welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad you're here. So here we are in the middle of January. You've all been super compliant and motivated and hopefully having great success with a upgrade in your diet and lifestyle habits. Maybe you've shed a few pounds, maybe you're sleeping better, maybe you're getting out and getting exercise, and that all feels wonderful. Today we're going to be talking about 5 or so foods to think about reducing or removing from your diet and how we can maximize and hopefully speed up fat loss. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Connie Rutledge, functional nutritionist. I'm a menopausal fat loss expert. I help you, the menopausal woman, with tips and tricks and secrets and hacks to lose the fat, increase your energy and vitality, and feel like you want to feel in your body. A major reason diets fail is because of hunger. There's so many ways to combat hunger, and typically what I find in my practice is that many women are under eating, or they're starving, or they're just misinformed on how to feed themselves. We were taught to eat less and exercise more in order to have lasting success. Well, that just doesn't work. We need to eat, but just eat less often. And I think I've stressed that in many of the videos that I've done. Today we're going to talk about 5 foods that you might consider removing or seriously reducing so that you combat inflammation and normalize your glucose and blood sugar levels and insulin levels and allow your body to not swim upstream when it comes to fat loss. The first food that I want to talk about is sugar and artificial sweeteners. And this is a no-brainer. Of course, you know you need to at least reduce the amount of sugar that you're eating. Sugar comes in many forms. We're talking about granulated cane sugar. We're talking about high fructose corn syrup. I'm also kind of referring to starches that metabolize into glucose and sugar. It's important to know how many grams of sugar you're eating in a day and how sugar affects you. I mean, what are your energy needs? Are you exercising? Are you sedentary? Are you someone who's middle of the road and can tolerate a little bit because you are metabolically flexible? If you're having trouble with fat loss, maybe it's time to grab a pen and paper and do a diet log. You can do this on your phone. There's many apps that, track. But I would suggest that you get busy tallying your macronutrients. How much sugar are you actually ingesting? That's a big one, because if you're not balancing your carbohydrates with enough protein and fat, it's likely that you're going to be way too hungry because that glucose is hitting your system and you're used to feeling one way, and then when that glucose starts to get used up, then your insulin bottoms out and your body cries for more sugar. I think that's a no-brainer. I think you guys know that. So obviously reducing sugar is important if you want fat loss. Enough said about that. Now, the next thing I want to bring up is artificial sweeteners. So many times we think that since it's no calories, the artificial sweeteners will have no impact on us gaining weight, but that's just not true. A lot of the artificial sweeteners all of the artificial sweeteners are chemicals. Chemicals are something that the body just doesn't know what to do with. So it increases inflammation. It provides a lot of toxins for the body to process, and all of those things get sequestered and the body kind of becomes uncomfortable. And I always say it's like circle the wagons, protecting the body so nothing gets out. You will not lose fat if you have a toxic overload. artificial sweeteners like saccharin and Splenda, which is sucralose, and aspartame are definitely things that need to be avoided. Now then there's the more natural sweeteners like stevia and monk fruit and xylitol, and a combination of those sweeteners need to be understood how they impact your glucose levels. Sometimes you'll want to, well, I feel like if you're struggling with fat loss and you're eating or drinking sweeteners, whether it's artificial sweeteners or more natural sweeteners, you owe it to yourself, or just table sugar, honestly. Say you're putting stevia in your coffee, or you're sweetening your iced tea with monk fruit, or you're actually using sugar. Maybe you're having a soda or two in a day. We want to know what your glucose does a half an hour after ingesting that food. Using your glucose monitor, the Keto Mojo, is a really good way to just test, see what happens when your body has that type of fuel on board. Sometimes there's no impact. If you're in the fasted state and you have a cup of coffee with liquid stevia, and a half an hour after that, what you'll want to do is test your glucose levels. Before you ingest anything, you're going to take a glucose reading with your Keto Mojo. And that should be somewhere around 90, maybe it's 85. If you're under stress or have been exercising, it could be up to 120. That being said, then have your sweetened drink, whether it's artificially sweetened or sweetened with something natural like stevia or monk fruit and or plain sugar, and see what your glucose levels are half an hour after that drink. If they rise above 10 points from the first reading, then you do not tolerate that sweetener well. There will be many reasons why you don't tolerate that. Your microbiome is not able to process it. You're sensitive to that. It is a toxic substance. There's so many reasons why. But if you don't understand that and you're doing an artificial sweetener day in and day out and your blood sugar is kicking up, that tells me that your body's producing insulin. And we don't want insulin produced when it's not necessary. So we want to keep that insulin nice and low so that your body can burn body fat for fuel and use the fuel that you're actually feeding it. Hopefully makes sense. If not, leave a comment for me so that I know that you want that explained a little more clearly. I want you to know what your glucose levels are and how food affects you, because it's a game changer. Number 2 on the list is seed oils, inflammatory oils, and unhealthy fats. Processed foods, fried foods, those foods that you know are not real food. The inflammatory seed oils like soybean oil, canola oil. I did a whole video on the dangers of seed oils and how destructive they are to kicking up inflammation in the body. They're highly processed, they're toxic, they're full of garbage that the body just can't handle. It dysregulates the balance between the good fats, the omega-3s, and the highly processed omega-6s. So we need to make sure that we keep a balance, and I'll link my video with seed oils in the description box so that you can refer to that, or maybe I'll tag it on at the end. I don't know. Anyway, go find that one because it's a good one. And most of us know this, you've heard it before. So avoid the French fries, at least limit them. Avoid the processed crackers, the processed baked goods, and lean heavily into avocado oil, coconut oil, butter, and natural fats. that will definitely increase your cellular structure, because every cell in our body needs quality fats to be viable and pliable and not plasticized. And as we age, we want to make sure that we're doing everything in our power to allow our bodies to knit together healthy structures like cellular membranes. Now that's a big one, not to mention inflammation with the inflammatory fats. Inflammation is going to decrease the body's ability to lose fat. It's that simple. And when you're eating good quality fats, you're going to be more satisfied, you're not going to be as hungry, and you'll be able to stick to your diet much easier with the right amount of fat. And that's super important. Again, remember, the reason why most of us can't stick to a healthy diet is because we get too hungry. And if we are managing our macronutrients by eating proper amounts of protein, fat, and carbohydrates, then we'll be able to eat less often and allow our body to feel really good while it's using up stored fat. Another thing that we want to make sure that we tolerate well is dairy. Okay, this is a big one because some of us do fine with dairy, and I'll say that as we get more metabolically flexible and our body has less systemic inflammation, when our weight gets normalized, we can tolerate dairy and tolerate it just fine. I mean, it's a great source of fat. There's protein in there, and it's an animal food. Obviously, we need to be very careful that we are ingesting foods from healthy animals. Organic, quality, grass-fed cows, well, that's important. Buy quality. There's less garbage in that for your body to process. And if you want to go one step further, maybe you buy raw dairy and see how you do with raw dairy, because homogenized or pasteurized dairy has been chemically altered. The heat affects how the molecules react, and it basically kills the enzymes, and then we're left with more lactose. So beware and be aware of how dairy affects you, and your mileage may vary. I'll have ladies complain that they're not able to lose weight and they're eating clean, and then we'll remove dairy for 2 weeks and they're shocked at how quickly that inflammation just falls off. So that's something to consider. And I'd say remove it for 1 week. Be diligent and see how you feel, and then reintroduce one type of dairy at a time. And give it some time, because if your scale ticks up 2 to 3 pounds 2 days after you've added back in cheese or cottage cheese or heavy cream, whatever it is, it's more likely inflammation. So consider that piece. This is all very nuanced, and you need to pay attention to what's going on in your body. Not get too dogmatic about it, but just be easy about making a choice and sticking with it and trying something that you haven't tried before. Okay, the next thing that I want you to consider removing from your diet is wheat, gluten. That's a big one because a lot of people get really, really testy when we talk about going gluten-free. But modern wheat has been genetically modified. It's been heavily sprayed with pesticides, the glyphosate, and it's a very good inflammation maker. Organic wheat is one thing, and I would definitely say if you tolerate wheat and if your weight is stable and you're feeling great, then organic wheat products probably are just fine. A lot of people argue that sourdough works for them, but I will say organic sourdough could be just fine for you. But let's be clear, bread is a processed food. And if your body is sick, and if your body is riddled with inflammation, and you're not able to lose fat and your hormones are dysregulated and you're just not able to stick to the diet because you're always hungry, processed grains will be the first thing I suggest that you get rid of. When you're eating products like bread and crackers and things that are made of grain, even gluten-free products, you're not eating whole foods, real food. Because a lot of times you'll have a sandwich and that'll satisfy you and you'll feel good after that meal, but you're not taking into consideration that you could have had vegetables and animal protein instead. So let's be clear. You might want to just play with removing bread and pasta and all of those grains, especially the wheat, and see what happens after as little as 7 days. Another thing that you could do is after having like a sandwich or a pasta dinner, test your glucose. How high is your blood sugar going up? Are you able to tolerate that much starch? And I mean, everybody's going to be different. If you're more sedentary and you don't need that much starch to keep your body really satisfied, then no, you might want to stick to the veggies. Even starchier veggies are going to be a better substitution than the processed grain product. Okay, so you're going to eliminate gluten. That opens up a whole new conversation, the conversation of gluten-free products. And so many times when you do avoid gluten, you do have a nice bump in lowering inflammation. I mean, it's wonderful because of what I talked about earlier with the GMOs and the pesticides kicking up overall systemic inflammation and the processing. You know, there's a lot of added sugar and chemicals to breads and pastas and things like that. We don't want to sub in a lot of gluten-free products. I mean, there's better gluten-free breads out there and they're fine on occasion, but you want to know what that's doing to your blood sugar levels. And you want to make sure that you're not making a mistake by adding in a gluten-free version of a grain product that contained wheat. They still have starch, they still have ample amounts of carbohydrate, they're highly processed. A lot of that also contains pesticides and genetically modified. So again, back to basics. I know, but you'll thank me for it because by eliminating most grains and or processed grains, because those are going to kick up your blood sugar and kind of take up a lot of room in your diet when you could be focusing on more nature's carbs like vegetables, fruit, and things like that. So I'll just leave that right there. Grains should be caution food. If you're active and can afford the starch, then go for it. Your dose is dependent on how active you are and how metabolically flexible you are. So proceed with caution. Now, the fifth food that you want to really beware of, and this is not popular, it's alcohol. Don't turn it off. I know a glass of wine now and then is enjoyable, but let's be clear that when you're trying to lose fat, and you have a cocktail or a glass or two of wine, your body is going to prioritize that sugar, that fuel, that alcohol over everything else. And it's going to definitely shut down your metabolism way more than you think, for way longer than you think. Alcohol is low carb, and you might not have a huge bump in glucose if you tested with your Keto Mojo. But understand that the alcohol has significant impact on your liver. There's toxins. Our liver is overburdened with toxins as it is. So please just be aware that by choosing that alcohol at the end of the day you're maybe undoing some of the efforts that you worked hard to add in eating a clean diet. There's also the fact that alcohol is going to interrupt sleep. And we know how important sleep is to fat loss. When you're not sleeping, you're not able to detox properly. And we're definitely wanting proper detox. And the liver is very, very important in that process. Now, you could play with a castor oil pack. You could play with an Epsom salt bath. There are things that you could do to assist the liver in detoxification, taking your minerals, and those will help with liver detoxification. And we'll talk about detox in another video very soon. At this stage, let's make it simple and just appreciate the fact that if you have fat to lose, you might want to really abstain from alcohol for a while, or just use it very sparingly. So let's go over the 5. We have avoiding sugar and sweeteners, and or understanding how they affect us. Be aware of that. There's the seed oils, so bad fats and good fats. Really balance that. Remove the bad fats, removing inflammation. Number 3 is be aware of the gluten and modern wheat, because it definitely will have an impact on your glucose levels and a lot of other levels like pesticides and inflammation, the starch alone in a processed baked product. Number 4, dairy, or maybe that was number 3. Either way, dairy needs to be understood in how it affects you. If you're having problems with fat loss and you're consuming a lot of dairy, then you might avoid it for a while or reduce it significantly and just see what happens. And alcohol. So those are 5 things. I'm going to go a little bit deeper and say that journal might be a really, really good thing, just to understand how much you're eating, what you're eating, and not to get nitpicky, but if you're having problems with fat loss, you might want to get detailed. Using your Keto Mojo, understanding how the food that you are choosing is affecting your glucose levels and your insulin levels, so that you are maximizing your tools and giving your body as much bandwidth to enjoy letting go of stored fat. Now your emotions come into play. We talked about emotional mindset at the first of the year. When you have a craving, is it because you're actually hungry, or is it because you're wanting self-soothing? That's a big one. Appreciating the emotional component to fat loss. You know, once you get going and you start losing a few pounds, let me tell you, there's no better feeling in the world. Managing your diet, making sure that you're eating enough, eating the right macronutrients so that you feel satiated. Now remember, there are some tools to help with satiation. I've got the PureLeanSatiety appetite suppressant supplement by Pure Encapsulations that is amazing at just kind of curbing the appetite. It's pretty remarkable what's happening with my clients that are trialing that. It's a very easy thing to try. Jump onto FullScript, save 15%, and I'll have that linked in the description box as well. Why not increase your satiety and give yourself a little boost so that you don't have the gnawing hunger, especially while you're trying to get back on track. And it's a game changer. Eating plenty of protein is going to help also with satiety and getting quality fats. So just eat real food. Prioritize protein, quality fats, delicious vegetables and fruits. You can even have potatoes and sweet potatoes and squashes if you need some more, beans occasionally. If you need more starch to make you feel like you want to feel after a meal. So those are 5+ foods to remove or reduce for maximum fat loss. I feel like there's a lot in this video that will make a huge impact if you implement them with consistency. That takes effort. That means you need to make up your mind. That means you need to take action and get the job done. It's not going to happen on its own. Hopefully this was encouraging for you as you scroll through YouTube and try and find the answers. I get it. It's not easy. Living in a menopausal body is extremely frustrating when you don't have what it takes, or what you used to do doesn't work anymore. Your hormones have shifted, your inflammation has increased, and there's a lot to unpack. So follow these tips. Let me know how it goes. I want the best for you. You deserve to feel good in your body. Thanks for being here. I would love it if you would subscribe and like, and let me know what's working for you. If you're having trouble with your willpower, if you're having trouble understanding, or you feel like you're doing everything right, then go to my website and schedule a jumpstart with me. We'll discuss it. We'll figure it out. We'll tweak it. I promise you, you'll have success. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.